We're live.
You're at 109 right now.
We're going to go down the rabbit hole today and just talk about different things. First up, Kevin Gaines. Let's listen to what he has to say.
Can't be alone with themselves. They can't.
Right.
I can be alone with myself. I don't need to talk to nobody or nothing. I can talk to myself and figure it out. A lot of people don't want to face themselves.
Right.
And that's an act of valor. That's commendable. Because through isolation is where we reach elevation. That's when most of my epiphanies happen, when I'm alone.
I'm with him alone. That's when your epiphanies happen. You have to give yourself time to resonate, to meditate, to find your equilibrium. You can't be overly stimulated by so many things. You've got to come down from the high and find your base level. And in that peace, in that stillness, that's when information downloads come to you from the universe, from God, etc., etc. I'm with you, Kevin Gaines, in that regard, to what you're referring to. Let's keep it moving.
Running our business. We can all go back to running our business. But where am I? Where am I? You're in Munchkin Land, the indivisible land of Oz. Oz? Where's my home? Where's Aunt Em? Where's New York? New York, 433 Prospect Place. Ooh, 433. You want to play more than one number today, honey? I got a freedom special. No. 3 numbers for the price of one. I don't want to play any numbers. I just want to get home.
Numbers, y'all. That was the impetus. That was the inspiration for sharing, copying that dialogue. Numbers 433. You want to play some other numbers, child? And numbers, right? Because you do know that this is the iSee109 podcast.
You're at 109 right now.
Those are numbers, right? So that's just another example of numbers, their ubiquity, the ubiquitous nature of numbers. Whether you believe or ascribe some characteristic to a number, whether you do or you don't, you can't go a day without seeing numbers, interpreting numbers, whether it's the time of the day, whether it's the price of a food item that you're going to purchase or any purchase that you're going to make. Numbers, 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 okay? What else? What else is there to talk about?
He was born in that part of the world that touches Africa and Asia and Europe. And Jesus was not a white man like me.
Okay, that's what it's all about there. That was evangelical preacher Billy Graham, the late Billy Graham, speaking on the color of Jesus. And what I would want to say about that is, like, hold on, I think I have a sneeze coming on. Pardon me. Oh my. Yep, I sneezed, but I'm back.
You're at 109 right now.
So with regard to Jesus, I was listening to Dr. Greg Carr. I believe he's the Dean of Africana Studies at Howard University. And I was listening to him this morning, December 13th, 2025, probably around 7, no, it was around 6, between 5 and 6 a.m. because he's on the East Coast. So he's 3 hours ahead and doing his thing. Anywho, during his presentation today, he said specifically, Jesus was black. And I thought, okay, Dr. Carr is saying it. And so I have this recording of Billy Graham, the late Billy Graham, saying it. And even though it is believable, it is something that I believe to be true, we often find depictions of Jesus in a non-black form, right? So it's a controversial ideal because the overall ideal is that Jesus is not black when the depictions aren't. Look at National Geographic issues every year. Every year there's a National Geographic. It seems that every year National Geographic is trying to sell their Jesus edition. And there's a picture of a white European, Caucasian, whatever man depiction of Jesus. I have yet to see on the cover a black Jesus depiction. I bet the sales of that book would skyrocket if they were to do that. But anywho, now controversially, did Jesus actually exist? Was Jesus actually a black man who actually walked the earth in existence? Was he? Because there's this whole science behind the Christ figure. And is it what? The Christ serum in our bodies along our spines? I'm no expert on this, but just hear me out. And the 33 years of Christ's life is synonymous with the 33 vertebrae of the spine. And this serum travels from the base of the spine up to the crown, up to the head. Rising, Christ rising. So basically, the story of Christ, is it an allegory? Is it it is a story that is created to describe physical, chemical events in our bodies? I'm saying that as a statement, but also as a question. And so the idea of Christ actually being one human being, one man, it's just a fictitious ideal, just created. But the whole life of Christ is one that is based in I want to say physiognomy, or maybe it's physiology, on the physical aspects of the human body. Am I making any sense here? Because we assume too many things. Like we assume that Jesus died at the age of 33. Yeah, I did a Google search probably several months to over a year or so ago, and the Google search told me that it's just 33 is just a commonly accepted age, or a commonly agreed upon age. But we do not know at what age Jesus actually died. It's just commonly agreed upon that it was 33. It could have been 36, could have been 32, it could have been a number of years. So, did Jesus actually exist? I can't say definitively. But look, I'm not the expert on this, you know. And I don't profess to be, and what have you. So let's defer to an expert on this topic, the late Runoko Rashidi, and let's hear what he has to say about it.
Let me hit you something that might get you hurt when you walk out of our door here. I kind of want to hit the nail between the eyes and talk about Jesus. All right. And whether or not, with the studies that you have done, Jesus, as is described in the Judeo-Christian books, did he exist?
You're asking me my opinion or my thought on the historicity of Jesus the Christ?
Both.
Yeah, I might get hit outside, man.
Mm-hmm.
I would say there's no physical evidence for that. I used to be a consultant at a church in Los Angeles, and the pastor brought in some information that I'll never forget. One Sunday afternoon, he brought in a list of writers, people like Diodorus Siculus and Strabo and others, Josephus, that lived at the time. I mean, these are world-famous writers whose books we still have today, who lived at the time that Jesus is supposed to have lived. None of them wrote about this man.
Whoa, that ended sooner than I expected. But there you have it. All right. Now, if you want to hear more from the late Dr. Runoko Rashidi, you'll have to go to the episode of the Newman. Let me get this. Let me get it right. Newman Report. Let me see. La di da di da. Newman Report. Howard University. La di da di. Typing this into Google. Rock Newman, excuse me. Okay, Rock Newman Show. There we go. All right, so in order to find that episode, you should go to YouTube and search Runoko Rashidi. Right? Rashidi. Let me see. Runoko. Runuko? Yeah, Rashidi. Okay, Rock Newman. So just put in Runoko Rashidi Rock Newman into a Google search, and the first result should be the episode from which that audio was excerpted. Runoko Rashidi, Runoko Rashidi, Rashidi, on the Rock Newman Show. Rock Newman spelled Newman. Now that that's all out of the way, we've heard from a learned man on this topic. Whether Jesus existed or not, the life of Jesus, the allegory, the story, the biblical tales are demonstrative. They demonstrate how to live, okay, for us to follow. There are rules. There are examples in the Bible to follow. Look, think about what Prince, the late Prince, said. The artist formerly known as Prince, and then Prince, Prince Rogers Nelson. Prince once asked the question, what would Jesus do? And he posed this question to underline, to highlight the guiding principles that any man, woman, or child should have in their life. You just don't do whatever you want in life. You have to ask yourself, what would Jesus do? And try to live a godly life. That was the point, I think, of Prince Rogers Nelson asking that question. What would Jesus do? So whenever you're presented with a situation, a moral quandary, and you have to make an executive decision, take it to that level to say, what would Jesus do? What am I going to do? Well, let's think, what would Jesus do in this scenario? But Jesus, whether he's black or white, is a powerful figure, has always been a powerful figure, in all of my life, because I've always been, a quote unquote Christian, and always heard the gospel of Jesus, always said my prayers, But as a 46-year-old man today who has had experiences throughout the globe, I want to imbue, I want to inject or interject. I'm using these words in a very similar fashion as the brother from what Damon Wayans' depiction of the prisoner who is using big words, and he isn't making any sense. You know that one? Let's see if we can pull up and get some audio from. I'm sure we can pull it up in a timely manner. Let's see, Damon Wayans. Let's see. And I'm gonna have to pull up the Brave browser because I don't want any commercials to play, and I don't want to get distracted. So Damon Wayans, prisoner in living color. Because listen to this nonsense that this brother is spewing.
Congratulation of the matter by transmitting the effervescence of the Indonesian proximity in order to further segregate the crux of my venereal infection. Now, if I may retain my liquids here for one moment, I'd like to continue the redundance of my quote-unquote intestinal tract.
Terrible, right? I'm reminded of that, as I'm speaking. Like, my goodness, man. But as I was saying, I want to interject. I want to inject into this conversation. My interpretation, my belief. That I had some wild experiences happen to me internationally, and the result of that was me drawing the conclusion that Jesus is a black man today and in the past, and that serves me in my life. Let's listen to the late Reverend Cleage, and his interpretation of Jesus as a black figure.
Well, I think the basic reason or symptom or proof for the racism of the Christian church is the simple fact that white people have pretended for so long that Jesus was white, and that they've had the necessity to interpret Jesus as being white, when essentially white Christianity is racially, is historically false and theologically absurd, and practically, in terms of its effect on black people, it's a debasing institution that enslaves black people. I think we have to understand, though, that we're not making moral judgments here. Any institution that exists in any society exists to serve the interests of the people who set it up. And Christianity began as a black man's religion. It's an African religion. We have to remember that Israel went into Egypt with 70 people, and after approximately 750 years came out with over 2 million people, and hordes of other slaves who came out and became also part of the emerging new nation of Israel. So Israel, the biblical Israel, was a black nation, an African nation that came out of Africa and kept constant ties with Africa. And so we have to remember then that Jesus was a black Messiah, not a white Messiah, and he comes out of the whole historical background of Africa, of African traditions, of African history, of African culture, the concept of communalism, the concept of a chosen people, the concept of kingdom of God on earth. All these things were out of African tradition, not out of the white man's tradition. And Jesus was essentially a revolutionary Messiah who was trying to lead a black people in a revolt, in a struggle and conflict with a white Gentile oppressor. So the whole church has to be viewed from the point of view of the white oppressor. The white oppressor has one kind of Christianity, has one kind of church. The black church has to become independent and go back to the historic African roots of Christianity, because the slave church that the white man set up for black people tends to continue the enslavement of black people. So the black church has to become, again, a revolutionary instrument in the hands of black people, controlled by black people, fighting, as Jesus fought, for the liberation of black people against white Gentile oppression.
So well said, so well articulated. Let's take a break from the intense nature or the topic at hand, and let's chill out a little bit, but let's also resonate on the brilliance and mastery of modern day griot. And who better to exemplify or to demonstrate his uh, eloquence at articulating the experience of, black youth than one Sean Carter or Jay-Z. Let's hear what he has to say.
And then there's hell, niggas. One day you cruising in the 7, the next day your alibis ain't matching up. Bullshit catching up. You hit with the Rico, they repo that vehicle. Shit was all good just a week ago. About to start snitching, ain't you? Ready to start bitching, ain't you? I forgive you. I forgive you. Hustling just ain't you. Aside from the fast cars, honeys that shake their ass in bars, you know you wouldn't be involved with the underworld dealers, carriers of Mac Millie, East Coast bodyers, West Coast caterpillars, little monkey niggas turn gorillas. These are my rhymes, B.
You're at 109 right now.